Have you ever noticed some people walk into a room and immediately seem to know everything? They observe, they listen, they absorb every detail, yet, strangely, they never rush to speak. They smile, they nod, they ask a simple question or two, and suddenly, everyone shares everything as if their hearts are unlocked. Friends, this is not magic. This is not luck. This is wisdom. The art of noticing everything, yet acting like you know nothing. It's the quiet power of humility, of patience, and of strategy. Because here's the truth. When you act like you know it all, people close up. When you act like you know nothing, people open up. And that is when you truly see the world, understand the people around you, and make better choices. Today, I want to talk to you about this subtle, powerful way of living, a way that lets you notice everything, learn everything, yet act with gentle wisdom as if you are still learning. It's simple yet profound. It's quiet yet extremely powerful. And it can change not just how you see others, but how they see you. Have you ever taken a moment to truly see the world around you? I don't mean just glancing or passing through your day in a blur, thinking you already know everything. I mean really noticing the subtle shifts in people's expressions, the way someone's voice changes when they're nervous, the tiny gestures that speak louder than words ever could. It's amazing how much life communicates to us if only we take the time to observe. You see, most of us are so busy trying to be heard, trying to show what we know, that we completely miss what is right in front of us. We walk past signs, miss the nuances of a conversation, and overlook the lessons that are quietly waiting to be discovered. But someone who practices true observation, they notice it all. They see the tremor in a hand, the hesitation in an answer, the unspoken emotions behind a smile. And here's the beauty of it. When you notice, you understand. You understand people, situations, and even yourself a little more each day. Observation gives you the power to step out of the fog of assumptions and into the clarity of truth. And it's not just about seeing the obvious, it's about catching what others dismiss as unimportant. It's the quiet details, the fleeting moments, the things so small that most people don't even register. They are the ones that carry the most insight. And when you begin to notice everything, when your awareness sharpens, life itself begins to teach you its secrets. You start to see patterns where before there was only chaos. You begin to understand motivations that seemed mysterious. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to navigate life not through force or noise, but through clarity, understanding, and quiet wisdom. That, my friends, is the first step in being truly smart, learning the art of noticing. Because when you notice everything, you are already one step ahead. Humility in actions is one of the most powerful, yet often misunderstood qualities a person can cultivate. When we act like we know nothing, it is not because we lack knowledge, nor is it because we are timid or weak. On the contrary, it is a conscious choice, a quiet strength that allows us to connect with the world in a deeper, more meaningful way. Think about it. When someone comes across as knowing everything, when they dominate conversations with their opinions and facts, what happens? People often feel intimidated. They close up, they stop sharing. And slowly, even if the person knows a lot, their knowledge becomes isolated. They are surrounded by silence, not insight. But when a person approaches the world with humility, when they act like they are still learning, something remarkable happens. People open their hearts, they share their thoughts, their struggles, their truths. They feel seen, not judged. Acting with humility creates space for trust and understanding to flourish. It is a form of respect, not just for others, but for life itself. And here is the subtle genius of it. When you combine the ability to notice everything with the choice to act humbly, you are no longer just living in the moment, you are learning from it, absorbing it, and gaining wisdom that others, no matter how loud or knowledgeable, often miss. Humility in action is like a magnet for insight. It teaches you patience, restraint, and the incredible art of influence without force. It allows you to move through life with grace, to observe, to understand, and ultimately to act when the moment is truly right. And the most beautiful thing about this humility is that it is invisible to the ego. It does not seek recognition. It does not demand applause. It simply exists, quietly powerful, shaping not just the way others see you, but the way you see the world. And when you master this, you realize that knowing everything is not the goal. Understanding everything, feeling the depth of life, and connecting with people with sincerity, that is where true strength lies. Listening more and talking less is one of the simplest yet most transformative habits a person can cultivate, yet so few of us truly practice it. From the moment we are born, we are trained to express ourselves, to share our opinions, to be heard. And while expressing yourself is important, there is a subtle wisdom in realizing that listening, truly listening, is even more powerful. When we speak too quickly, when we rush to offer our thoughts or judgments, we often miss the depth of what is being communicated to us. Words are just the surface. The real meaning lies in the pauses, in the emotions behind them, in the hesitations, in the unspoken messages. A person who listens deeply is like a calm lake, reflective, patient, and absorbing everything without disturbance. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. People feel understood. They feel valued. They feel safe to open up, to reveal things they might never have shared otherwise. You begin to hear not just what is being said, but what is being felt. You notice patterns in behavior, glimpses of truth hidden beneath layers of pretense, and motivations that are invisible to the casual observer. Listening more also gives you the gift of time to process, time to think, time to respond in a way that is measured, insightful, and impactful. It teaches patience, humility, and empathy. And the beauty of it is, when you combine careful observation with active listening, you gain knowledge and understanding that goes far beyond what you could ever achieve by speaking alone. You start to see the subtle connections, the underlying currents that guide people's actions, and even the lessons life is quietly trying to teach you. This is not just about gaining advantage or knowledge. It is about cultivating awareness, emotional intelligence, and wisdom. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, those who truly listen become rare and invaluable. They are the ones who can navigate relationships, challenges, and opportunities with a clarity that others can only envy. And ultimately, listening more and talking less is a path to inner peace as well. It slows down the constant chatter in our minds, allows us to absorb life as it unfolds, and reminds us that sometimes the most profound understanding comes not from what we say, but from what we take in quietly, with our hearts and our minds fully open. Avoiding premature judgments is one of the most important, yet most overlooked, skills a person can develop. You see, life moves fast, people speak quickly, and situations unfold in ways that often appear confusing or contradictory at first glance. Our minds, conditioned by past experiences and beliefs, have a tendency to leap to conclusions before we truly understand the full picture. We hear a story, see a fragment of behavior, or witness a momentary reaction, and immediately we decide who is right, who is wrong, who is trustworthy and who is not. But here's the truth: when we judge too quickly, we blind ourselves to understanding. We close the doors of empathy, of learning, and of insight. The person we judged in a moment of haste may be struggling with a pain we cannot see. The situation we labeled as failure may actually be a seed of growth. And when we act on these premature judgments, we often create consequences that could have been avoided. By practicing patience, by taking the time to notice, observe, and reflect, we allow life to reveal its full story. We begin to see the nuances, the motives, and the complexities that make every person and every situation unique. It is in this space of quiet observation, without rushing to conclusions, that true understanding emerges. And here is the subtle power of it. When you resist the urge to judge immediately, you are also mastering yourself. You are cultivating awareness over reaction, insight over impulse, and wisdom over ego. People are drawn to this quality because it radiates calmness, fairness, and trustworthiness. When you withhold judgment, you invite dialogue, you foster connection, and you create the possibility of resolution instead of conflict. Life, in its infinite complexity, rarely offers simple answers at first glance. By avoiding premature judgments, by giving yourself the time to fully notice and understand, you position yourself not just as a careful observer of life, but as a wise participant in it. You begin to move through the world with clarity, compassion, and discernment, seeing things as they are rather than as you assume them to be. And in this practice, you discover a quiet strength, a deeper understanding, and a freedom that comes from choosing insight over impulsivity and wisdom over haste. Gathering information silently is one of the most powerful yet subtle forms of wisdom a person can practice. Life is constantly giving us lessons, but if we rush to speak or act without truly taking it all in, we often miss them. Every interaction, every conversation, every glance, every pause carries meaning. The quiet observer notices things that others overlook. The hesitation in a voice, the flicker of emotion across someone's face, the subtle shift in energy when a topic is discussed. These details, small as they may seem, are the threads that, when woven together, reveal a far richer tapestry of understanding than what is visible on the surface. By gathering information silently, by choosing to absorb rather than immediately react, we gain insight into people's intentions, their fears, their motivations, and even the patterns that guide their actions. It is a form of learning that does not rely on textbooks or lectures, but on life itself as it unfolds around us. And here is the beauty of this approach. When you remain quiet, when you observe carefully, people reveal themselves in ways they never would if they knew they were being watched or judged. They speak more freely, they act more naturally, and the truth emerges without effort. Silence in this sense is not emptiness, it is a tool, a channel through which knowledge flows. It allows you to see the full picture before you form an opinion, make a decision, or take action. The person who gathers information silently is like a gardener tending to a tree. They patiently nurture understanding, allowing insights to grow and reveal themselves at the right time. And when the moment comes to act, the actions are informed, thoughtful, and precise rather than rushed or impulsive. This is the essence of strategic wisdom: observing, absorbing, and waiting until you fully understand before you respond. It is a quiet mastery of life, a way of moving through the world with both humility and insight. And as you practice this, you discover that knowledge is not just about what you know, but about how deeply and subtly you understand. It teaches patience, restraint, and the power of timing, reminding us that the most profound lessons in life are often revealed not in words, but in the quiet moments we take to truly notice and understand everything around us. The art of subtle influence is something most people overlook because they equate influence with loud voices, strong opinions, or visible power, but true influence is quiet, gentle, and almost invisible. It is the kind that allows you to guide situations and conversations without anyone realizing it. When you notice everything, when you listen deeply, and when you gather information silently, you begin to understand not just the words people speak, but the emotions, fears, and desires behind them. And here is where the real power comes in. By acting like you know nothing, you remove the barriers that ego and authority often create. People feel safe, they feel seen, they feel understood. And in this safety, they reveal themselves, their true intentions, and their authentic thoughts. You don't need to argue, persuade, or impose your ideas. By simply being present, attentive, and humble, you create an environment where the natural flow of insight and influence occurs. You become like water flowing gently around obstacles, finding the path of least resistance while shaping the landscape quietly but steadily. Subtle influence is not about manipulation, it is about understanding timing, emotions, and context so deeply that your actions carry a weight that is felt rather than forced. The person who masters this art does not shout or command. They observe, they learn, they wait. And when the moment is right, they speak or act in a way that others naturally align with. And the most beautiful thing about this approach is that it builds trust. People do not feel controlled or coerced. They feel supported and guided. And when influence comes from this place of awareness and care, it is far more enduring, far more effective, and far more profound than any display of dominance or knowledge could ever be. Life itself responds to this subtlety. Doors that seem closed begin to open. Conversations that seem superficial become meaningful. Relationships that seemed distant grow closer. And in all of this, the one practicing subtle influence remains humble, patient, and wise, quietly shaping outcomes not through force, but through the mastery of presence, observation, and understanding. In essence, the quietest person in the room often holds the greatest power, not because they know the loudest, but because they understand the deepest. Building trust effortlessly is one of the most remarkable outcomes of noticing everything while acting like you know nothing. You see, trust is not given, it is earned slowly and delicately through consistency, empathy, and presence. When we approach life as if we already know everything, people feel judged, measured, or even compared. They hesitate to share, to open their hearts, or to let us into their world. But when we act with humility, when we listen without interrupting, when we observe without reacting hastily, something extraordinary happens. People sense that they are safe with us. They sense that we are not here to prove ourselves, to dominate the conversation, or to impose our opinions. They feel understood, and when that feeling arises, trust naturally follows. It is as if our silence, patience, and attentiveness are creating an invisible bridge, a bridge that connects hearts, not just minds. And the beauty of this trust is that it does not rely on words alone. It is built through actions, gestures, the tone of our voice, the depth of our gaze, and the consistency of our behavior. Every time we respond with empathy instead of judgment, every time we allow someone to express themselves fully, every time we choose understanding over opinion, we are adding another plank to that bridge. People are drawn to this kind of presence. They share what is true, what is important, and what is vulnerable. And in doing so, we gain a profound understanding of life and human nature, far beyond what we could ever learn from books or lectures. Trust, once established, opens doors that knowledge alone cannot. It allows us to influence with care, to guide with wisdom, and to connect at a level that is deep, sincere, and lasting. And here is the subtle magic. This trust is effortless because it is not forced. It grows naturally from our choice to notice, to listen, and to act with humility. It reminds us that relationships, whether personal or professional, thrive not on dominance, not on proving who is right, but on the gentle, consistent practice of presence, understanding, and sincerity. When you master this, you realize that life becomes richer, interactions become deeper, and the bonds you form are resilient and meaningful. And in the end, the one who truly listens, observes, and acts with humility becomes a rare person in the world. Someone who inspires trust not by telling people what to do, but simply by being someone worth trusting. Patience brings clarity, and yet in today's fast-paced world, it is one of the rarest virtues we encounter. So often, we are tempted to rush, to make quick decisions, to speak hastily, to react immediately to every situation that confronts us. But life, in its infinite complexity, rarely offers complete clarity at the first glance. The more we rush, the more we risk missing the subtle signs, the hidden motives, and the intricate patterns that quietly guide the course of events. When we cultivate patience, however, something extraordinary happens. We begin to see beyond the surface. We start noticing connections and possibilities that are invisible to those who move impulsively. Patience allows us to step back, to observe, to reflect, and to understand before we act. It is in these quiet moments of restraint that insight emerges almost effortlessly. And here is the subtle magic of patience. It does not mean inaction, nor does it imply weakness. On the contrary, it is a deliberate choice, a conscious mastery over our impulses, an awareness that immediate reactions often cloud understanding. Those who practice patience can witness life as it unfolds, and they are able to act with precision, wisdom, and timing that others can only aspire to. They see the bigger picture, notice patterns, and understand the intricate web of cause and effect in ways that rushed minds cannot. Patience teaches us to tolerate ambiguity and uncertainty without anxiety, to hold space for others, and to listen with depth. It cultivates resilience because we no longer feel compelled to force outcomes or control every detail. Instead, we trust the process of life while remaining fully alert and aware. And in this calm observance, clarity naturally arises. Decisions become wiser, actions become more effective, and relationships deepen because we are responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Life itself seems to reveal its secrets more generously to the patient observer. Patience, then, is not just a virtue. It is a lens through which life becomes clearer, richer, and far more meaningful. It reminds us that understanding, insight, and wisdom are not the rewards of speed, but of measured observation, quiet reflection, and the discipline to wait for the right moment to act. In cultivating patience, we discover not only clarity in the external world, but also peace within ourselves, a profound sense of calm that allows us to navigate challenges with composure and insight, seeing the world as it truly is, rather than as we fear it to be. Strategic advantage in life is one of those subtle skills that most people overlook because it is quiet, almost invisible, and yet it shapes outcomes in ways that force and loudness never can. True strategy is not about winning arguments, proving yourself to others, or showing off knowledge. It is about understanding the world, people, and situations deeply, and then moving with awareness, timing, and precision. When you notice everything, when you listen attentively, when you observe with patience, and when you act with humility, you naturally position yourself for advantage, not by pushing, but by aligning with the flow of life. Life, after all, is rarely straightforward. People have hidden motives, circumstances change in unpredictable ways, and opportunities often appear disguised as problems or challenges. Those who act impulsively, who jump to conclusions or speak without observing, often miss the deeper currents that guide what unfolds. But someone who cultivates this subtle approach sees patterns that others miss. They understand the energy in a room, the emotions behind words, and the unspoken dynamics that shape decisions. This awareness gives them a strategic edge. It allows them to choose the right moment to speak, to act, or to step back, knowing when intervention will create value and when restraint will preserve it. The beauty of this strategic advantage is that it does not rely on force or ego. It relies on insight, patience, and emotional intelligence. It allows a person to influence outcomes effortlessly, not by dominating, but by understanding and aligning with the natural flow of events. Over time, this approach transforms not only the results you achieve, but also the way people perceive you. They see someone who is calm, thoughtful, and reliable, not reactive or domineering. Your presence becomes powerful because it is measured, intentional, and wise. And perhaps the most profound aspect of this kind of strategy is that it cultivates freedom. Freedom from being manipulated by circumstances, freedom from impulsive mistakes, and freedom from the constant pressure of trying to prove yourself. When you master the art of observation, humility, patience, and thoughtful action, you gain the ability to navigate life with clarity and confidence. You begin to understand that strategic advantage is not about controlling life, but about engaging with it skillfully, seeing opportunities where others see obstacles, and acting in ways that are both effective and respectful. Life rewards those who understand this because they are ready when the moment is right. They avoid unnecessary conflict, and they build outcomes that are lasting, meaningful, and aligned with wisdom rather than ego. In essence, the person who notices everything but acts with restraint and humility becomes not only smarter in their choices, but also stronger in their presence, quietly shaping the world around them without needing to shout or force their way. Wisdom over ego is perhaps the most profound principle of all, and yet it is one of the hardest for most people to practice. From a young age, we are taught to compete, to prove ourselves, to be right, and to stand out. We are encouraged to measure success by what others think of us, by accolades, by recognition, and by visible achievements. And while these external measures may have their place, true mastery of life comes from the quiet strength of setting the ego aside, from understanding that knowing everything is not the goal, and that the real power lies in understanding, restraint, and inner clarity. When we act as if we know nothing, when we listen deeply, observe carefully, and gather insight silently, we are practicing a subtle yet powerful form of humility. And this humility is not weakness, it is intelligence in action. Ego pushes us to react quickly, to assert ourselves, to dominate conversations, and to make decisions based on pride or the desire to impress. But wisdom over ego allows us to pause, to reflect, and to act from a place of understanding rather than compulsion. It allows us to see the bigger picture, to understand people deeply, and to make choices that are thoughtful, strategic, and compassionate. People are drawn to this quality because it creates safety, trust, and respect. When ego is quiet, others feel comfortable revealing themselves. When wisdom is active, We navigate life with clarity rather than confusion. And here is the subtle genius of this approach. By putting ego aside, we free ourselves from unnecessary conflict, from the anxiety of always needing to be right, and from the constant struggle of comparison with others. We begin to understand that life is not about proving how smart we are, but about learning continuously, connecting authentically, and responding thoughtfully. Wisdom over ego teaches us patience, empathy, and the art of influence without force. It reminds us that true power is quiet and enduring, that the greatest victories are often unseen, and that mastery is not about loud declarations, but about the subtle choices we make every day. When we act with humility and quiet understanding, we find that people naturally trust us, situations resolve more harmoniously, and we gain insight that those driven by ego often miss entirely. Over time, this practice shapes